to you all. Grand rising, grand afternoon, grand evening. It is sunrise here where I am. And we're going to watch the sunrise for as long as I can out here. The title of Inner Child Healing here. Um, you know, truly remarkable how much we go through in life. It truly is remarkable. And I don't mean how much we go through life on a day to day. I don't mean how much we go through life in a moment by moment basis, but just think of how much life you've lived and how every single second of every single moment you've been taking information in. And your brain and your body have been keeping the score and the memory and the information this whole time for you. And over time, it does change. It does make a difference. It does help you heal. So just look at the sunrise and to not think about your life in such grandiose, big, reflective manners. I mean, that's why life is, designed to be so busy. The schools, the jobs, the education, the clubs, the politics, family dynamics. It's all meant to just take up information, take up space, take up room in your life. So there's less room for you, there's less room for your own moral processing to come in and, imagine a whole world where everyone understood their own morals and made decisions based on their own morals instead of the basis of what someone else told them or the guise of being a good person versus a bad person and acting on that. Just imagine look around and imagine we could all have inner harmony, peace, feeling of fulfillment. But man, it's those darn memories and the things that we intake that make us feel like we can't be ourselves or we can't make good decisions, or are we a good person or are we a bad person? It's something you should ruminate on. It's not something you should think about for more than a day in total. Truly, truthfully. It's not something to tally up. It's not something to track in relationships. Life should literally just be ease and flow, watching the sunrise. And I really was sitting with some tough emotions as I've been celebrating things this month. Um, one of them was my birthday. It passed. Um, and I think that is something to be grateful for, of course, but a lot of the things that I've been keeping track of are actually things to help me not keep track of things in my mind, if that makes sense. And I've been trying to go out in nature and just talk to people without it being weird. And, going to parks, walking on sidewalks, going to a few stores, taking a longer route, asking a question, a very out there question. Just doing things out of the norm, like moving back here to be closer to family and realizing that the root of my existential crisis and the questioning everything and trying to prove myself and getting lost in relationships is from family, stemming from family, harm from family. And no matter how much you try to forgive people or get the judgmental thoughts out of your head, it's still in your nervous system. Your brain has become wired differently. Your outlook on life has become a lot more narrow focused. And so suddenly, one thing being missing from the house turns into panic attack, and an unexpected payment or an increase in a bill suddenly means higher cholesterol levels, high blood pressure. Suddenly, that rejection from a job or from that relationship that you wanted to work out feels shattering to your reality. It all starts to feel a lot more dramatic, and again, it's not in a good way. It's not a good way to be this much to yourself, this critical of others, this hopeless, this programmed into thinking that's all that life is. And the more I question things, the further I find myself from others. Yet, the more I want to dig deeper into something. And I think I've been digging for the last few years, and I've finally hit the jackpot of realization, which is the fact that I wanted to get into mental health and healthcare because I had such a knowledge filled, historically educational upbringing, and something that just made me want to dive deeper into mental health and family systems and life coaching was because I didn't have that resource until I was much older. And it was applicable then, but the type of counseling um, based off of my childhood and things that I learned from relationships from 16 years old and under literally made me want to become a hermit, made me want to not trust people as much. Kind of made me see more of the harm done by others instead of trying to find my passions in life. I'm studying people's behaviors, their voice inflections, their body language instead of what is it that I'm naturally curious about outside of others' actions? What is it that I'm naturally good at in terms of recognizing a pattern? What is it that I'm really interested in doing outside of fixing or helping? And, sometimes you get a little too curious about life and you find out everything that was wrong with you because no one told you. They just wanted you to believe that everything is fine and don't question anything because they wanted you to avoid the hurt. They wanted you to avoid the mental chaos and reading into things too much, especially with your energy and your attention, just makes that feeling deeper. And whatever you're feeling and whatever you're thinking manifests into your external reality. This is why generational trauma is a reality, because the shame that your grandmother felt or your mother felt is still felt within the children, and the same lack of emotional knowledge and intelligence that your father never got, and the nurturing that your grandfather never got, is still felt in their children and the offspring. And no matter how many generations or hereditary diseases people think that there are in mental illnesses, there's a lot of things that the body does process and keep score of. Not just a mentality, not just an unsettling emotion, but whatever is unprocessed gets passed down through the genes, of course. So you can know a lot about education and wellness and knowledge and facts and history and how to handle rejection and how to ground yourself and how to understand your emotions, but processing them and releasing them from your body, from your memory, is completely and utterly different and separate. And I don't know why the healthcare system and society treats it so separately. When we today see a society of people who are just barely carrying through their day, and on the other side of society, people are having too much to do in a day, too many options to choose from, and no time to think. The overthinkers and the overdoers on opposite sides of the spectrum, of course, but thus is the reality of anything's possible at any time, anywhere, any place. You have an infinite amount of people who can behave any way, at any time, at any place. Things are less predictable. People are upset about change, and the ancestral wounds of the ancestral trauma and the ancestral memory that's scientifically being proven that we are our ancestors, and DNA passes down everything, our whole life process, the way that we live, the way that we respond to things, all of it is through our DNA, through the patterns that were woven into us from our lineage, from our bloodlines before bloodlines were even a thing. And yet, rumination is not a good thing because you could go on a bender, you can go on a binge, you can overindulge in whatever makes you dissociate in movies and promiscuity and self pleasure and numbing yourself and dissociating, and it still isn't enough. You have to release from the memory standpoint, from the emotional wounding standpoint, from the unshakable feeling that you have. Maybe it's hard to describe. Maybe you don't need a psych ward. Maybe you don't need a shrink. Maybe you just need something different in your life. You need a different environment. You need a community that welcomes you. You need a warmer climate so you could see the sun and be closer to it and feel the warmth of the vitamin D and minerals and feel good hormones that come from being in nature and being more active as a lifestyle and eating better. And you know what? After sobering up from numbing myself and feeling like things are off, I'm suddenly coming to the realization that the more I try to suppress who I am and not talk about my family and bring people's business online, the more I do find myself feeling like I am blocking my own communication, and I don't want to block any of my own energy centers, right? I don't want to stop the flow of communication or thought from my heart or my throat. Someone said happy belated birthday in the chat. I kind of maybe stop to read it. Been rambling for 19 minutes. But the sun is risen almost completely in this time, in this 20 minutes now. And I think that the more that I process just how much I was not really a child of love until I was born, and I wasn't given the proper attention and environment that I needed, but it was enough for me to be able to form sentences and be curious about others and be respectful of society. Just not enough of the childhood that I needed to be able to form healthy relationships and be really ambitious and try to fit in with others. And when you always stand out like that black cat walking on the sidewalk, I don't know if y'all could see it, but it's very interesting the lengths that people go to just to go around an issue. And I just watched as that cat went all the way around me instead of walking in front of the sidewalk to get to the house next door. That's what I've also been doing in my life. Going around the elephant in the room, not talking about things that obviously bother me, and it's really detrimental to my health. Just like it's detrimental to the other people around me's health. to be worried or stressed out about someone, and for me to be worried and stressed out about things that I cannot change either. People try their best and they do their best, but if you were brought up in unfortunate circumstances or in circumstances where that family couldn't care for you in the ways that you needed, sometimes you don't get help or the proper medical attention or the care that you need until you're in your 20s, or until you move out of your family's house, or until you break mentally. But even in this moment, I'm already in the realization that I am enough and that I'm going to make it through life. And some things my parents did that were really helpful to me, and other things they did that were really harmful. And you know what? I could sit here and point the finger and blame and then become bitter and then resent them and then become like my parents and then go back to them after I have kids and a family and just want to compare notes and then live with that resentment in the back of my mind. But, you know, I've also done my fair share of separating myself from them and going through periods of not talking to them and then living with them, or not talking to them and still being reliant on them to a high degree. And, I don't want that to happen either. I don't want that to be the cycle that I'm passing on to my kids about not talking about things. But it's very fortunate that I have this high level of awareness to be able to understand how hurtful people's actions can be over time, how hurtful someone's um, forgiving attitude can be in the long run. Just forgive everything and everyone and try to still make it work. Like, no, even forgiveness has to have its parameters at times, because you could forgive someone and say it every day for a year and still feel the need to have closure. But it doesn't always come. And, it's like that same sentiment with healing and being your own person as an adult. You may constantly be apologized to. You may constantly be triggered. You may constantly be someone who isn't thinking of things from a more mature perspective. But you know what? Over time, life will teach you and humble you, and for certain, make you more aware of your habits and your patterns and the actions that you're taking, because you're not a child anymore. I don't know why consequences are only applicable to children, it seems, nowadays, but for the fact of the matter, even if something is wrong or off, it's still something that we have to associate and differentiate within ourselves. What is something that determines me to be successful and a good person and have high morality, versus what is someone who is not successful, who is closed off and not attached to themselves, so to speak. Because I also don't believe that your morality should alter my entire identity and perception of self. I think that your morality is yours and mine is mine, and however we differentiate should just be that. How we differentiate shouldn't feel like, oh, I need to be doing this because this person's around, or I need to be doing that because that's how they think of me. No, it should never be like that. In truth and in reality, it should be, how do we coexist together in this space as child and father, child and mother, child and uncle, child and aunt, child and cousin, child and grandparent, right? You shouldn't think of life as, this ultimate sacrifice and something that you're just doing to kind of keep up with others' expectations or others' philosophies or moralities on life. I don't think that we need to have more generations and more societies filled with wounded inner children when we know that the root of all the issues is emotional instability, financial insecurity, and poor health is all rooting from a wounded inner child and someone who was not properly taken care of and nurtured. And you know what, it is sad to really think of life in that degree, in that manner, but that is something that is the truth. At the end of it, we all have our own blessings and curses and things that we do well and things that we don't excel at. But you know what? It's something that I'm finding myself to be getting a little more emotional as life proceeds. And I didn't sleep too long last night, and I have been smoking again, to just calm the anxious and the intrusive thinking about life, because it is something that I've been able to reflect on a lot more with the solitude and the quietness and the lack of physical relationships around me. This isolation has taught me a lot about being reflective and looking on past relationships. And I know I'm not going to be an addict forever. I know I'm not going to be attached to this relationship dynamic forever. And I know I'm not going to live in this so small city. My goodness. And I'm going to be making a lot of big changes within a month for sure. For sure. For certain. For sure. But now the sun is very much up. I'm actually a little bit more awake now. But I wanted to talk about a lot of inner child bruising and subconscious bruising, and when we feel safe enough to feel something is when the trigger releases, not when the time is right, not when things are morally good, not when you have the right relationship or the right finances or accolades. It's, hey, when is your mindset right? Okay, now that our mindset is right, we could focus on our mind more, and then we could focus more on our life, and then choose to live the life that we want to live, essentially. And I think it's really important that the people who feel the same way as me, as deeply as me, similarly as me, however you want to word it, but I think that it's really important that we take time to look at ourselves and look at our lives and see how much we have changed just from becoming aware of things. To the extremes, absolutely. To different degrees, absolutely. But we have changed. And even though it's breaking the cycles and dropping illusions and, you know, seeing things for what they really are. It's still remarkable to have this ability and these gifts of higher knowing, of higher seeing, higher truth, authenticity, right? Inner wealth, things that are not tangible but are invaluable when speaking of things that are tangible, right? You cannot compare inner truth to a car. You cannot compare authenticity to a restaurant. You cannot take on things that just don't hold value. You can't take them on, right? And you shouldn't want to take on things that don't have value or meaning in your own life. Just like you shouldn't want to hold that family member, that parent, or that person who raised you, their opinion over your own satisfaction and the way that you want to live life. Who gives a fuck about that person's opinion? Because who are they? Who are they to you? Who is that person in their opinion to you? Besides something that echoes and repeats in your mind. And I don't think I ever hear the neighborhood or the birds or the buildings this busy. I've seen the cars go by when I used to watch sunrises before, but it's a bit different. I think it's been 33 minutes now. So I think it's important to note that. It's like, I think it's important to be aware of yourself, but in a healthy manner. Absolutely in a healthy manner. I thought the neighbor was about to leave. Hold on. Sort of windy. I just think sometimes we're really tough on ourselves and our inner child hears it. Our inner child hears it and gets sad. And I think it's really important to note that when we speak to ourselves and when we look over our lives, no matter how far back we look, right, it's something that you shouldn't want to be overly critical about or overly negative about, because again, you have that awareness, you've made the choice to change, but also the simple fact that life does get better, right? Life does take a few dips and strolls in a different direction, but it's truly something that, something that could be miraculous in its own way, and something that could be terrifying in its own way as well. But the morality of life and our choices is that I have no idea what is going on outside. Also, I'm gonna just mention that I don't know who's in the background of this video, so I want to just say that I'm literally, see, y'all saw nobody was outside when I came outside, right? So keep that in perspective. But I think that it's really important that we take care of ourselves and don't look at awakening and having awareness as something that becomes this can of worms being opened, in a sense. I don't want it to seem like, hey, I have this awareness and this level of profound living. I don't know what I should, you know, do with my life next. But life isn't meant to be like that. Life isn't meant to be something dissected and looked at in a way, in a sense. Life is literally just life. And it's meant to teach us that no matter what happens around us, and no matter what we're capable of, we don't have to go through life thinking that we can handle everything all the time. It's not safe, it's not healthy either. And just like the people who've had a perfect, seemingly perfect life, we never know what someone inside is feeling or thinking or yearning for. So it's best to just really keep in mind that life happens when it does, the way it does, how it does, who life happens to. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Because it's just unique and it's flawed. And it's really, really, really humbling. And you know what? It's okay because we learn every day, we grow every day. So possibly so life should be right? But I think that the impact of our choices is something that should be focused on and not weighing our choices, but just being curious about the circumstances in the environment and the things that our choices were influenced by, or if our choices were controlled in any manner, simply that, looking at how our life was unfolded with a different awareness of it unfolding, and not in an auditing way or a way that has less simplicity, but in a way that's truthful, right? In a way that carries the thoughts in your mind to a different space, in a way that you don't have to think about so harsh, in a way that truly suits your life and your lifestyle, right? If you want to be a writer, and a famous one at that, you would focus your attention on writing and things that you could write easily, or things that you could write about for a long time, things that you think about a lot already, things that, help you technically write, edit, right? Theorize things, prove, become grammatically aware of things, right? Just think of how you would be as a writer and what relationships you would have and what skills you would want to sharpen. There goes the sun behind that house, almost completely rising. Think about what you would want to do. And as a writer, choose the relationships and the skills and the habits and the approach that you take on life. And think of it if you wanted to be a doctor or someone who invents things, who makes crafts, or someone who takes care of nature. Either way, the more simply you focus on your life and the more simply you choose the actions that create outcomes, that create your life, the better your mental will be and the less you will live in the past, truly and truthfully. We can talk all day about spirituality and being creative and, living life in a magical way, but if we don't see ourselves as magical and still see ourselves as this angry, sad, throwing a tantrum 5-year-old child, then we're not going to attract mature outcomes or mature relationships or mature dynamics if that is our mindset, if that is our internal world, our mentality, right? So please do things for your inner child to feel more comforted so that you don't have to stay in that emotional memory and that triggering, traumatizing points of your life when you were younger, you know? Also, think about who you want to become in your life and how you want to live every day. And, maybe one of those days is just watching the sunrise and looking outside and standing where you could see the slow sunrise as well. It's literally about to come up behind that house. It's nice to focus on that and be in nature, not just watch outside of a window or letting the seasons pass you by, as they say. And you do that and you get out of your own way, in a sense, You get out of your own head. And, the more you do that, the simpler you will live your life. Guaranteed. And the sun is very magnificent and healing. And we all need vitamin D to survive, right? We need the feel-good hormones. We need that serotonin. We need the processes that make us human to be really felt and absorbed more often. Sick societies, we don't need more health issues, we don't need more trauma. But what we do need is to recognize that we are already whole within, and that no one else's nervous system and no one else's opinion and no one else's perspective and approach to life matters more than our own and how we could be healthy in our own lives. I think that's so important to really remember in life. Just how much being in nature really helps you feel connected again to yourself. And if you think about it, you're a child, you were outside, not paying attention to your thoughts, not paying attention to what other people thought of you, not being self-conscious about what you were wearing or how your face looked or your hair. You were just in nature, being a little kid, just enjoying your time outside. And I can't wait for the day where we all just stop and look around us and decide again that life is important and nature is important. And think of how important your life felt when you were more connected with nature, when you were just outside. Watching the leaves blow, looking at the birds flying, staring at the sun, letting the leaves fall out of the trees and stepping on the grass. When you live slower, you're able to process life. When you live quickly and in a hurry and fast, it's medically a way to quite literally shorten your life. And I wouldn't feel this moved or dedicated or pulled to make a video if there was such a thing as a middle path, as living in a not fast, not slow way, but living in a middle range or middle paced lifestyle, somewhere in the middle, where you could still find purpose and fulfillment in a job and a career and learning skills, but also have a community and have time to yourself and connection with nature. And I think that's so important, that a middle path should be created for people who want to do that and live like that and act like that, in a middle path and a middle pace, in the middle lane, some might say. But some people also say stay in your lane. So sometimes you never know, truly. But I believe that this world is truly full of possibilities, and that this world is full of dedicated people, as dedicated as that person is to driving around this neighborhood. So that's the third time I've seen that truck drive by. Same dent in the vehicle. Anyway, the distractions are not the purpose of the message, clearly. But as you can see, the sun fully rising behind that house. Wait. There we go. Camera angle. I think that it's important to still yearn for things too. To yearn to be loved, to yearn to be to yearn to be seen, to yearn to be understood, to yearn to matter, to yearn to be known, yearn to be understood, yearn to be loved, yearn to be seen, yearn to matter, yearn to be heard, yearn to be known. Don't ever stop yearning, ever. I just felt so moved to say that. Don't ever stop yearning, ever. Ever. And even though I know there are a lot of things off balance right now, for me, let's just word it that way to be positive still. Um, I know that my child is not going to feel half of what I have felt in my life, and they will have completely different problems because I solved a lot of them in my lifetime. And I don't have to become a doctor or a neurobiologist or a psychotherapist or a caseworker or a nurse or a shrink or whatever, just because I came from a messed up background or anything like that. It's also not good for me to harp on negativity and just think that I have to give up at life because of the imbalances. But the right person will help you if you need that balance. In a physical way, the universe always sends someone to bring balance, to restore the karma. And it's okay to feel differently over time. I never wanted kids when I was growing up because of how I was treated and other things that I saw growing up. But now I'm like, you know what? Maybe the right person will balance out my genes and things that I've gone through, and maybe my kid will have, a life 3 times better than mine because of it. And truthfully, that is the hopes now. To find someone to balance me. I know that my efforts are enough when they're in a positive direction. And the sun is fully out. Hello, morning sunlight, sunshine, morning light. And I feel better. And it's almost been an hour now, so I will say thank you for listening and thank you for being here with my inner child. And it's okay to spend more time with your inner child. It's okay to spend more time in your heart instead of your mind. It's okay to process things out loud. It's okay to feel. It's also okay to just realize the higher knowledge and the higher truth of things so you can get past it. And I think that's really valuable for a lot of people to hear today, is that they're not broken or messed up or completely hopeless. You can still find love, you can still change your mind, you can still fix your body, whatever you want to do, you can still do it. You just gotta put your mind first instead of other people's minds or other people's ways of thinking. And this is a clearly a vulnerable moment for me, so I'm looking forward to the next moment of joy that I have, the next moment of happiness that I have, the next moment of feeling my yearnings be fulfilled. You can't disassociate out of the emotion. You can't smoke it away. You can't drink it away. You can't eat it away. You can't numb it away. You can't do anything to get rid of that outside of feeling it, outside of releasing it from your memory, from your tissues, your fascia, your skin, outside of it all. And it's okay. It is okay to feel that way for long periods of time, but just don't give up on your life just because you think that way. It's all temporary. A thought is temporary just as a life is temporary. The importance that we give it is the importance that it holds over our life. Salience. But don't give up. Don't give up on what you yearn for or what you seek in life. If it brings you harmony, don't give up. If it helps you find peace, don't give it up. And if it helps you reach a higher truth, please, as much as it hurts, please don't give that up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Hetepu. All is well, and the sun has risen again. All is well, and the sun has risen again.